Hello everyone and welcome back. As my guardian looks out into the night sky, wondering what adventures await him in year 2, I can't help but remind him that he still needs to become legend now. And of course, part of becoming legend is finishing your exotic collection. In this case, I'm talking about the exotic swords. As you know, not too long ago, we gained the ability to purchase swords from Lord Shaxx as soon as we have completed our first sword quest. The benefit of this, of course, is that you don't have to have 3 characters to get all 3 exotic swords. Now, I've been holding off on getting these 2 other swords simply because of how much of a grind fest these quests can be. But then I said, you know what, we're in a content gap and I want to make sure that my guardian is as kick-ass as he can be for the next DLC. Now, I didn't think ahead and I actually got the Void Edge with my Titan, and that's going to be a little more difficult if you're looking to do the Void Edge, simply because the Defender Super does not contribute to any kind of ability kills, which is going to be the longest part of this quest. The material gathering is as boring as usual, but if you end up needing to do spin metal, I highly recommend coming out to this part of the Skywatch. That way you can transition in and out of zones and get the same bunch of spin metal every time. If you're a Year 1 veteran, you might remember this from the Aether Chest Treasure Key glitch. And remember, the key to this is that no one else can be loaded into the zone other than you. If that's the case, then you are going to be able to pick up the same bunch of planetary materials over and over again. Now, this is the most boring part of the quest, so I highly recommend putting on some Netflix or something in the background, otherwise you will go insane. Now, for the abilities part of the quest, I highly recommend jumping into Mayhem. In here you will use your abilities a lot more quickly, and I think you'll be surprised to see how quickly that quest will be completed. The last step of the quest in the Sunless Cell isn't as bad as I remember it the first time around. My biggest problem the first time around was getting match made with people who needed the same warden killed as I did. This time around I was lucky enough to get match made perfectly each time. Now that I have all 3 swords, let's go ahead and compare them together. The first exotic sword is called Razelighter. This is the one I actually got at the very beginning. It's got the standard R1 melee L2 shield, tempered light, which is increasing your armor when wielding the sword, choices between scabbard and thrive by the sword, which gets you more super energy from kills, which is going to be an interesting thing of note when we look at the other swords. And then of course the main attack is Phoenix Uppercut, use R2 to launch into a solar light uppercut. And the last column being choice between Scabbard again or Warrior of Light, increasing the damage of your R2 attack. I guess another reason why I didn't go for the other swords is because how incredibly powerful the Razelighter actually is. Of course, it's got an incredibly powerful regular attack, but what's incredibly powerful about this weapon is, of course, the R2 uppercut. I am in awe every time I use the uppercut with how incredibly powerful it is. It does feel a little overpowered, but I guess that's the trade-off with swords. As you'll see in some of these clips, you have to get dangerously close to your enemies to be able to use it. But of course, when you do use it, your enemies do not stand a chance. Phoenix Uppercut is incredibly powerful, and there's nothing as satisfying as taking out a major with one uppercut. Next up, we've got the Boltcaster Arc Exotic Sword. Everything about this sword's perks are almost identical until you get to the 3rd column, where you have a choice between Scabbard and Live by the Sword, which says kills with this sword have a chance to grant orbs. If you have all 3 exotic swords, this might actually be the perk that defines which one you take into battle. And then of course we have the perk that makes this weapon unique, which is Sword of Thunder. Use R2 to shoot a beam of arc light from your sword, creating a lingering electrical storm. Now of course I wasn't too surprised to find that the Boltcaster is just as badass as the Razelighter. The benefit of the arc beam is that it can still be pretty devastating from using it far away, but you do lose the actual physical hit of the sword. And that physical hit is what actually makes the Phoenix Uppercut so devastating. If you slow down a Phoenix Uppercut, you'll actually notice that it registers 4 separate hits. The first one to take off the shield, and then 3 physical hits. So that means that the Boltcaster is actually more effective taking out larger hordes of enemies as opposed to a single opponent. So keep that in mind when choosing which sword to equip. And of course, last but definitely not least, we've got the Dark Drinker Void Exotic Sword. Again, most of the perks are going to be the same until you get to the middle column, where you have a choice between Scabbard and Die by the Sword, Heals with this sword replenish grenade energy. Again, this perk is different from the other swords, but ultimately you might just want to switch it back to Scabbard. As you'll see in a moment, a couple extra hits from the Darktrinker is going to be a lot more effective than any grenade can be. And that is because of Supermassive Vortex. Use R2 to unleash a spiral of void energy in all directions. I think this is going to be the sword I was most surprised with. Of course, I knew it did a Void Tornado, but I had no idea how devastating that attack actually is. The damage caused by each hit is a little bit less than a regular swing, but of course they get hit by it about 4 to 5 times. Not to mention, so does anything else in a close proximity. Because of this, it serves a perfect middle between Boltcaster and Razelighter. If you can't decide which one you need, the Darktrinker is always going to be a safe bet. Now of course this is a horizontal spiral, but I was actually surprised at how vertical it can actually get. As you can see, it just ignores Phalanx shields and it can actually hit wizards from out of the air. Combine this sword with Ward of Dawn and you've got a Titan Death Bubble. I had an absolute blast using this combination over and over again. Overall, exotic swords are incredibly fun and can be incredibly useful. My only observation is that they seem to have a little bit too much ammo, so I wouldn't be surprised if Bungie reduces the amount of ammo the swords have sometime in the future. Also, with the fact that the swords have statistics, I can't wait to see what Bungie has in store for slower or faster swords. How do you feel about swords in general, and what are your ideas for the future of this class? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like if you can, and subscribe for more Destiny content. And I will see you all next time.